Coming on the tours, you do get that look at the objects which you might not necessarily see that's, within the museum that we're working on at the moment. We can see on this knife here, you can kind of see polishing marks which came up on the X-ray. There was a very special object which was identified as an axe head, but when we X-rayed it, it was absolutely beautiful interlaced decoration and silver, which if you didn't X-ray the object, we wouldn't find out this information. So it's such an important process of iron conservation. We think of the Vikings as this big warfaring, aggressive type society, but they weren't. They were just normal people. There was children's shoes. They liked beautiful things. They liked decorating their objects. There's this leather satchel in the collection. There's hair still on the outside and they've cut a pattern into that. So, they liked things to look good. It wasn't all about the swords or the arrowheads or anything like that, even though there is a lot of that in the collection.
How long would it take to clean a more elaborate piece?
With some of these I used a laser to clean them, which is a slower technique, but you get a very, very good result on the decorative pieces. You have to balance your work between the lovely objects and the more mundane, kind of everyday objects, because you'd go mad if you had to clean 5,000 nails.
Morning folks, you're very welcome. My name is Patrick.
The French collections in this museum are pretty extensive. It covers everything from 16th century, 15th century material right up to objects that were made and produced in the last year, 18 months.
How long would it take usually to clean an object like this?
Very hard to estimate. Every object is different and you never really know until you start into the object what level of dirt and how unstable the finish is. But generally speaking, as a rough estimation, probably 2 days or thereabouts to clean this object.
Improving the standards of how we store our objects, we need to control things like temperature, light, humidity, and prevent pest damage. So hopefully what we're doing now will sustain the collections into the future for the next 100 years, and hopefully there will be more furniture conservators after I'm gone and we'll be able to look back on what I have done. That is, I suppose, ultimately very rewarding as well,
There is one metal object which has taken up a large part of my career at this stage anyway. It's known as the Lough Kinnail Book Shrine. It was found back in 1986 by metal detectorists. Book shrines are not that common. Any form of shrine is not that common. There are about 6 book shrines we know of anyway, so this is the earliest and the largest. And we can see some of the ornament on this and some of the decoration. We can work out how it was made. We can tie it in with some other objects like the Tully Lough Cross. When it was made, whatever was put inside it was presumably would have been a manuscript and would have achieved relic status. So it probably was associated with some local saint or venerated ecclesiastic. Well, I'd be glad to see it safely on display so other people can see the work that went into it, both from conservation and from the original craftsmen who were involved in the commissioning and the making of it. This will be my legacy. I can't imagine again that I'll have such a large and ambitious project.
I've worked on some absolutely amazing ones. Eastern weapons, Western weapons, swords, knives, daggers, pistols. Brilliant. There's a lot of these objects have been in store and they're coming out onto exhibition, and it's just revealing the true nature of the material. A lot of them need work, which is brilliant if you're conservative, but it is painstaking. You have to have a lot of patience. I'm working on a sword now, and it's brilliant because I got to see its method of manufacture, the technology, which you can't see with the naked eye. So you read about how they make these things in books, but when you can actually see it yourself, it's really thrilling. At the end, you think you've made it yourself. You do. You kind of talk in terms of, this is mine. Do you want to come and see my sword?
I think it's quite an interesting thing to come on a tour of a conservation department because it really is behind the scenes in a museum. Many people don't realise that the vast majority of objects in a museum are not actually on display, they're held in stores. And our job is as much concerned with looking after those objects as looking after the objects that you see on display, which are generally the pieces that are in better condition and need less attention from us.
Would you know how to use the exact right colours, and how would you know how to restore paint wise and things like that?
The important thing about ceramics conservation is generally any of the restoration techniques you're using will be completely reversible, and you will be able to remove those from the original object in the future. We're using pure pigments because they're nice materials that age well. Conservation takes a very long-term view that we are trying to look after these objects and keep them stable for hundreds of years, not just for the next generation but for many generations to come. We are custodians in this museum of objects which are over 2,000 years old sometimes, so we're not thinking short-term in any way. We're trying to do the best for objects that will live on long after we do, in fact.
You see the work that goes in, you see the expertise that goes in over anything up to 2 years before an exhibition opens, and then when the exhibition finally does open and you see everything and it's in the cases and it all looks fantastic, then yes, that is one heck of a buzz. We've got the most unbelievably good collections here at the National Museum, and just to make the most of that.